We're live. I'm checking my notes here. Just one last second here. But this is Coach Arnie with the Health, Love, Life, and Adventure Show. And we're going to be talking about traumatic injuries on this episode. But before we get there, don't forget to connect with me. Best way right now is give me a call. Just give me a call. You can always email me. Those are the best ways until we have some more information going forward. But we're going to talk about dealing with traumatic injuries. What happens? In part of my research, well, really, I'm part of my research because that aspect of injuries was my life for a good part of 30 years. And I still remember the day that when, after my son, who is working for me, was injured in a car accident, and then he was in the rehabilitation center, which I was not a fan of. And then I was having a chat with somebody at the insurance companies about what was going on. And she made a comment to me. This was 2002. And she made a comment to me, and she goes, well, because we were going to bring him home, because my wife wanted to bring him home. And she goes, well, this generally doesn't work. I go, I know, but we're going to do it anyways. So that began a long journey of going against the grain when it comes to a traumatic injury. And so not that event, but other things in my life right now with clients and people that I know, especially as we get older, because it's not only what happens, to you, but it's what happens to those around you. And we're going to talk about that a little bit because, look, regardless of what you may think, there is going to be a dramatic, and we're going to focus more on injuries today because it could be dramatic events that's going to happen to most all of us, whether it happens directly to you or directly to someone that you are closely related or associated to. Could be family, friend, doesn't matter. And being part of that, what do? How do you handle it? I'll be honest with you, most people don't do very well. Most people don't do very. In my own situation with my son, we all thought, oh my God, the kids and I and people that we knew thought this is going to be a disaster, even though it was the business that I was in. But that's probably why it was going to be a disaster, because my wife was not that kind of person to, drop everything and go all in an area that she knew nothing about. She really didn't know anything about it. Even me doing it, because she didn't even understand what I would do. She would always say, why are you doing all that stuff? I mean, that was her. And so that was the evidence that I had. So, but fast forward, she became super caregiver. She would be in the Hall of Fame right now if they had a caregiving Hall of Fame for how to handle that situation. So we don't know what's going to happen until it happens, right? But talking about it helps to prepare you. And I don't want to be negative about it. And I'm kind of rambling. I haven't got to my notes yet, but it reminds me of when I had my clinic, my second clinic. And we did, like I said, traumatic injuries. And we were very close to the then Phoenix Cardinals, now Arizona Cardinals training facility. So I would go over there all the time and try to invite these guys to come over. I thought, man, this is right in their wheelhouse. Why wouldn't they want to come over here? I've got all these young guys that are injured, and man, they could really use some motivation, some inspiration from these big football guys. Crickets. Not a peep. I go, what's going on? This doesn't make any sense. So a few years later, I was talking to a group of former NFL guys, and what they said to me made sense. That most of those guys that are actively playing, they don't want to be around this kind. It reminds them of what could happen to them in one play. And they didn't want to be around it. Isn't that something? Fear. So I just let it go. I let it go, respected that, and moved on. And but I'll be honest with you, a lot of guys that had, especially spinal cord injuries, they didn't want to be around a lot of spinal cord injuries because they didn't want to be around that negativity. They wanted to be, around folks that were moving on in life and getting on with it. So it kind of goes both ways, right? It kind of goes both ways. So most of us will experience some kind of a traumatic event in our lives, whether we are the one who's seriously injured or we're the one dealing with someone who is, whether it's family member, friend, associate somehow. And so it would be nice if not everybody had a deer in the headlight look when it came to, hey, did you hear? And panic and not even know what to say or do. So let's look at some of this stuff. Most of these injuries occur in some type of a serious accident, whether that be a car accident. I've had clients that have fallen off of roofs, jumped into swimming pools, dove into sandbars in the ocean. My God, I can't even, more gunshots. You name it, I've probably seen it. Or it could be a serious illness. Strokes are probably the worst. All different kind of illnesses can create debilitating situations, whether it be, paralysis or whatever it might be. And or natural disasters, which could be, considered accidents. Hey, look, here in Arizona, it's no big deal, but I know where you're at, Cece, you've got hurricanes and all kind of crazy stuff. Probably got tornadoes too over there. And so, you hear it every year, right? Hurricanes, tornadoes, fires. All these things create situations where people get hurt, and not just a little bit. They get hurt bad. So if you know something like that, or it becomes you, you all of a sudden are thrown into the pit and have to figure it out. And when that happens, what are you going to do? What are your options? I always like to have options, right? That's why I'm a big advocate for health. Health gives us options. Health gives us options. So how will we feel after an event? It's usually the first thing that hits us. How will we feel? A lot of people, I'll be honest, I'll pick on me first. And I've been accused of this, minimizing and all that. I may be the guy that avoids their feelings, trying to be a little more stoic about it. I don't know. Has that been my way? And I'm not sure how it started, but has that been my way of being able to help people deal with it, early on versus running around with my hair on fire and being accused of not caring. I don't even hear that and just listen and just try to keep the situation calm so good decisions can be made. Again, so some people are like that. They avoid their feelings. Others go real deep negativity about themselves. They blame themselves. We'll get to that, but a lot of negativity about what happened. And everything's negative. And they're hard to be around. They're hard to be around through the process, because once there is a traumatic injury, there's a recovery that has to happen, or should. And if you're always and men are the worst, wow. Sometimes, in the hospital, during the initial stages, of the recovery, it's negative. Anger. Because a lot of people are going to blame themselves and blame others. It's just an ongoing thing. And after a while, a lot of people don't want to hear it. Because it's beyond complaining and blaming. There's a lot of anger there with the blame themselves and others for this situation that happened. And there might be some legitimacy to it. Many times there's not. If it's an accident, if it's a car accident and somebody's going to jail. I met somebody recently who actually helped my wife in her event. And the only reason she ran into him is because he found out what she was doing with drinking and driving, contacted her because he was going to ASU here in Arizona, and told her of her situation, which was he was drunk and literally ran into somebody's house and killed him. And now he's in jail. He finally got sentenced. And I'm not sure how many years he's in for. I'm not sure. Either way. But, that is somebody that is now having to deal with all of the negativity of that situation and blaming himself, other people. It wasn't my fault. It was the alcohol's fault. It was the drugs' fault. It was the boyfriend or the girlfriend that made me angry, that I wasn't focused on the road. I don't know. There's just a lot of anger, bitterness, all kind of crazy stuff going on during that part of the process. We're dealing. Some people just have nothing but negative emotions. As an observation, because it might be you. I might be talking to you, and you might be that person sitting there right now today, and and you've already heard this. You're just negative about everything. Or you might be the person that went through it, and you're sitting there in a wheelchair, and you're just negative. I'm just here to tell you that I get it, but it's not going to help you. Eventually you're going to chase away your team, and you're going to be left with nothing. And it's happened more than once, believe me. It's happened more than once. And it's not a good place to be. And if all you have to do is smile a little bit and be a little positive with people in your life to keep your team together, that's a pretty good investment in helping you to stay better. Another thing that's a common theme with traumatic injuries is feeling numb. Now, there's two ways to get there, or two types of people. Obviously, the one that went through it and they may not want to deal with it, so they numb themselves through drugs and alcohol, stupid behavior, just dumb things. And they just don't want to think about it. You know, that I call the squirrel in the cage. It starts to, to ramble on here, and people can't slow that down, and so they try to numb it. Drugs and alcohol, bad behavior, just crazy stuff, and so they get to a state of numbness until it wears off. Then they're back doing it again. And so if you're in that situation, I like to call that my crazy eight. A lot of people don't like to hear this that are going through this, because trauma is brutal. Absolutely brutal. But the way out of this thing is to change how you feel, change your response when something happens, when whatever you're dealing with. Change your rules. What do you need to do to be happy? What works for you? What gets you out of this? Sometimes it's your rules of, well, I just feel bad. I'm allowed to feel bad. And you are. You are. But those are your rules. Everybody, I have mine. Mine are different than yours. So it's just a matter of doing that. And then some people have an inability at this point in the recovery process from a traumatic injuries of being happy. It's almost as if they don't want to be happy. Make sense? They don't want to be happy. And you can be the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, and it's not going to make them happy. And that's tough. That's tough to deal with for a lot of people. And it's tough for people to be around that, more than just a couple minutes, because at some point they want, everybody wants you to kind of move on. And believe me, that's not what you want to tell somebody, to move on, because they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear it. But you're expected to hang in there with them, even though they can be brutal on you, if you know what I mean. They can be tough. So somehow figuring out a way for you to be happy again. What would make you happy? And I'm not saying you have to be song and dance because a loved one or a dear friend or something important, or you got into a serious accident or something really horrible happened. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying at some point, we do have to move on, because then you're just going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck. So, some other things about your feelings. One of the things that I like to really talk about quite a bit, and but first, before we get there, let's take a little break and we'll be right back. All right, we are live again, and we've been talking about traumatic injuries and how we deal with it. What are some of our options? And I hate to say it, but one of your options is to be happy. As hard as that sounds, that is an option. You get to be happy or not. So I want to continue with the feelings things here, how we feel when this, because it's so big. How we respond to life. I mean, if we can learn new techniques, we're going to get into some strategies here in a minute, but it really does come to how you respond to what life kicks at you. I mean, just like my wife did. She responded amazingly well. Who would have known? I've been blessed a lot of times, and I'm not saying it's always easy to be able to kind of deal with the situation and kind of slow things down a little bit. Slow it down so good decisions can be made. And how about some people act like they're just not interested in anything. You know what I'm talking about? They're just not interested. And you're trying to get them to go get some lunch or go do this, go do that. And it's like they're not, I'm not interested. That's their way of what I call detachment. And that's somewhat dangerous. It leads into isolation. I mean, they're not there yet because they're still, maybe they'll do things that they agree to do, like that they want to do. And it may not be anything that you want to do. We don't know if they're not talking. Now, it's another thing to talk about people that are taking care of other people. So now you've got two individuals there that you have to deal with. You have to deal with the client and you have to deal with the person that's taking care of them. So now you've got a couple more dynamics to this puzzle here. How do we deal with that? So how we respond, not interested, detached. And many people have learned to detach themselves from the situation and then move on. I could do that to a point. It is a technique. We're not going to call it strategy yet. It's a technique that a lot of people will do to be able to move forward. Only because it may be the only thing they can think of. I almost call it flight, fright, or freeze. So they're just going to freeze right there. And they're just going to kind of detach from the situation. Okay. So next one is a lot of people will, and I've seen this, will engage in very high level reckless behavior that could really seriously injure them or kill them. And it's in their mind, it's like, doesn't matter. So-and-so is not here, or so-and-so is in this situation. And so this is what I want to do. And they take chances. Now, the interesting thing about all that, when most of those things people are doing those, they loosen up. And most traumatic injuries, now granted, if you get hit by a semi-truck, that's doesn't matter how loose you are. But most traumatic injuries happen, especially in a car, because the person can't loosen up. They're too tight. So I don't know. Maybe they're helping themselves. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. So, so doing dumb things, being reckless, taking chances, big chances, is kind of an MO, or for some of these guys, mostly, that want to do something dumb because they don't really care about living. So they'll do something dumb. Yeah, reckless, self-destructive. I mean, think of things that you've seen people do, and you wonder, why are they doing that? You know, maybe I don't know. I mean, just crazy stuff. And not everybody does. I have a friend who's it's this parkour stuff. You may have heard of it. When I watch his videos on Instagram, I go, wow. I mean, it gives me the willies. I mean, it makes me almost nauseated to watch this. And it's called parkour. But he came over, was working out with us the other day. And I along with another trainer, looked at each other. How in the heck is he doing this? I mean, climbing buildings, stepping on chairs. I mean, just crazy high risk stuff. But he's not suicidal. It's just he's looking at it as a challenge. Because see, someone like that doesn't want people around him that are crazy to do stuff like that, because maybe that ruins what he's doing. You know, he's trying to do it in a positive, mental, positive way that encourages people to do better. So, yeah, risk taking, crazy stuff. It could come down, as far as your feelings go, to that angry, aggressive. You know, you're angry and aggressive to other people. Think about that. You know, here you are, you don't feel good. You had something bad happen to you. You got a car accident, broken arm, broken leg, you fell. Now you got to deal with the recovery part of it. Could be 2 months, 3 months. And you're like ready to bite people's heads off. So being angry and aggressive is not always the best way to deal with this kind of a situation. It's okay to take a breath, but it's not okay to freeze and then just go off on somebody. That causes a lot of problems. So then others here, before we get into our strategies, others are always on guard. You ever notice that? They're always worried that whatever happened to them is going to happen to you, and they're overly protective of your situation. Overly. And you got to love them. But they're trying to keep you safe. Now, a lot of times they'll drive you nuts trying to keep you safe, but they're trying to keep you safe. And that's not what a lot of people want. You know, they want to communicate. They want to learn more about what they're doing. But few people are really gung-ho on just jumping in there and going for it. You know? So, yeah. Let's take a look at some simple strategies to to deal with a traumatic injury. And some of these strategies may give you some options of what you can do. They may give you some options of what you can do. So let's take a look here. First thing is a suggestion. Don't isolate. We've talked a little bit about this. When you isolate, and men are horrible with this one. Okay? When you isolate, you cut yourself off from getting help. And you make this work worse. Then you become a head case. Now I get it. You don't feel good. You're sad. You're depressed. Your best friend, your son, your daughter, your husband, your wife. Somebody experienced something that was horrific. And now you got to help them through it. And they don't need you laying around doing nothing. They need you to help them through it. So, you got to pick up your sword and help them out. Because you can't let them out. You can't let yourself isolate. You can't let others isolate. If they give you permission, you got to figure out a way to get them out of that. Isolation will just terrible. Okay. So how about getting some help? This is a simple one, but you got to sometimes go through some people before you find the right person that can help you. Just not anybody can help anybody. The right person can help you. The right person. So I want you to look for the right person, whoever that might be. I don't know. I mean, it's some of the things that I help people do, but have an idea on getting help. I love the idea of a support group. I used to run a couple of support groups and gone to support groups. Probably a lot of you in here have done some kind of a support group, and we would go over a lot of stuff. Okay, we would go, but you had to be honest in them. You had to be honest, and once you're feeling, once you get into that support group and you start to feel the camaraderie and the fact that you're not as different as you thought you were, you'll probably start to open up a little bit. But support groups are pretty, I like them. Done a lot of work with them and run them. So, yeah, they're good. Now, how about, I love to tell this story. When you see a tiger in the jungle, what do you do? What do you do? Do you stare at it? Lean into it? Or do you wait till it's eating and you go over there and you try to take its dessert away from them? I don't know. But I do know this. When you stare the tiger in the eye, whatever that fear might be, when you stare it in the eye, it's going to do a couple different things. It's either going to eat you and attack you. So that fear is going to overwhelm you. Let me tell you a side story. Someone this week that I didn't know, but I know I'm very close to who they know. And they died in a traumatic situation at their condominium apartment. And part of my brain, not knowing this person at all and trying not to be judgmental, did some self-analysis, and the actions that this person were going through were paranoid. And I've been there, I've been paranoid. But paranoia well, you've heard the old saying, paranoia will destroy you. But when you're paranoid like that, you run away many times from a perceived fear for that tiger in the jungle. And I always tell people, what would you do if you saw a tiger in the jungle? A lot of people, I'd run fast. I go, no good. Tiger can outrun you. I would climb a tree. Great. Problem is, tigers can climb better than you can. I'd get out of here. I would blah, blah, blah. They don't really know. Because what it really comes down to, if the tiger wants to eat you, he's going to eat you. But now look what you've got. Because if you face the tiger, you face that fear, there's a good chance it will back down. And then that fear doesn't own you. Now, this is a hard one for most people that are going through a traumatic situation. I mean, if you were to tell this to my wife, 20 years ago, she would have smacked you right on the nose because she wasn't ready to hear that stuff. She wasn't ready to hear it. But if you face your tiger, whatever your tiger might be, whatever fear it is, and just know this, I've talked to so many people in recovery. Once you start running, you never stop. You're always going to be running. So just, face that fear, face that tiger. Stop running. Look, that tiger's going to eat you. It's going to eat you. But, this tiger wanted some references as far as, look, fear can cause some amazingly bad things to happen. Just like with this young lady jumping off her whatever. We don't even know. It's still under investigation. But if she was taking things that created paranoia, guys, that tiger ate her. If you know what I mean. The fear ate her alive. So let's move on from there. How about movement? Exercise. Get out and do something. Go for a bike ride. Go for a walk. Go for something that gets your body moving, get that blood circulating. Okay? That's one way to get away from the tiger, right? Go for a walk. Bring the tiger along with you. Come on, let's go for a walk. Well, basically what you're doing when you do that is you're shrinking that tiger into something small that you can handle. Shrink that fear down. Get rid of it. Don't make it bigger. Standing there and running, it's like in those movies, break a heel, right? Tripping a hole. Doesn't work. So move. Get moving in the right direction. Get moving in the right direction. Feel good about what you're doing. Movement will change your state so fast. You can change how you feel that fast just by getting up and moving. When I go to the gym, I feel so good. I really do. I feel good. And so that's the power of movement. Okay. How about taking care? Nurture yourself. Take a steam, a sauna. Do nice things eat a good, healthy meal. Do something good for. In the old days, they would tell ladies to go shopping, buy her something. So, and there's a lot of truth to that. We weren't studying all this stuff back then, but wasn't there a lot of truth in that? That person was nurturing themselves, doing something good for themselves. These are things that give you options on how to deal with a traumatic situation, traumatic injury in your life. Traumatic injury in your life. Avoid alcohol. So many people that I know that have gone through something traumatic, horrible injury, let's say, and all they can think about is drinking alcohol. That's not nurturing yourself. That's not nurturing. Going for that walk is, though, that movement. Sauna, steam, ice plunge. Go get your hair done. Go get a haircut. If you want to, go buy yourself a new shirt, a new dress or something. But at the same time, just nurturing yourself takes a big deal. And avoid alcohol. Alcohol is one of those things, if we go back up here, it numbs you. It numbs you. So avoid the alcohol. Somehow, some way, we got to get you back into a normal. Even when I was one of the beautiful things that I learned in traumatic injury work was a place I visited in California, and they did everything there. It is mostly traumatic brain injuries. They did everything there to help people get back into a normal routine. Get up in the morning, get ready, go to work, come home, blah, 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 blah. And how they do that? They had a transportation situation, opportunity. They would take you down where you're getting your rehabilitation. And that became your job, because it is. Then you finish up your job, you get back on the bus and come home and go do things at home. Maybe you had some shopping to do, whatever it might be. I don't know. But that encouraged me, and it showed me that when people get back into their normal routine, whether it's someone who suffered a traumatic injury or someone that's taking care of somebody with a traumatic, that routine has to become routine. And it makes a difference. It makes it, because a lot of people can't handle that scatterbrained approach. I mean, welcome to my world. I'm not going to say I love that, but I've learned to manage chaos. How's that? So I've learned to manage chaos, and that helps quite a bit. So, yeah. When you're feeling a little bit better, get that normal routine going, then what I want you to think about is small things. See, what happens a lot of times in these situations, because I work with so many families, they all want to focus on the big picture, like, when am I going to be better? When am I going to go back to work? When am I going to do all these things? Versus, what can you manage today? What can you manage today? Let's get you through today. It's kind of something I learned in Alcoholics and AA, when working with a lot of people in recovery, is be in the moment. What can you do in the moment? Can you smile? Can you do something for somebody else? Can you do some exercise? What can you manage in the moment? What small little thing can you manage in the moment? Can you manage getting up, taking care of yourself? Taking a shower, hygiene, brushing your teeth, little things that you may not even think about, but they make a big deal. They make a difference. And with all those, little things focused on, or the things that are focusing on these little things, and being able to do that in time. And believe me, there's no magic here. Believe me. In time, can you have a better day? It's one thing to say, oh, I'm going to have a better day. It's another thing to say, I'm having a better day, because you're doing it. You're doing these little things. Maybe it's going to a support group. Maybe it's focusing on some positive, the next thing I was going to share here, some movement, some gratitude. Maybe it's listening to some music that inspires you. Maybe it's being able to get into a routine of prayer and meditation. These are all little things that we can do to give us options to get through this situation. And believe me, a traumatic injury situation can be life-changing. If you have a spinal cord injury or a brain injury, and those are two of the big ones, or you have this illness like a stroke or Parkinson's or some type of dementia, these are for the rest of somebody's life. And are you going to be able to deal with it? Are you going to be able to help them through it? Are you going to be able to help yourself through it if you're the one that it's happened to? I don't know. But one of the things, the last thing I'm going to leave you with that helps learn how to celebrate those little things in life. Learn how to celebrate life. The world doesn't focus around you anymore. It focuses around everybody. But when we shrink the world down so that everything circles around us and it becomes an egocentric world again, our life gets really complex. It gets really painful. And so if you can get the focus off you and onto others, it's going to make your life so much better. I promise you. Because there are options to feeling better, guys, from a traumatic injury. There are things you can do. I just gave you a few right now, but there are a few, and you can do it. All right, guys, it's Coach Arnie with another Health, Love, Life, and Adventure show. And appreciate you guys being here. There's my phone number, and I would love to hear from you. Give me a holler, and have a great rest of your week.